Good evening, Coyote fans. Welcome back. Episode 13 of the Howling podcast tonight. I am your co host, Jordan Decker. Tonight, I am joined by Chad Berger, fellow Coyote fan. Mark has the night off. You can catch us on X at HowlWithUs3. Catch myself on X at JD605. And Chad at Chad Berger, Birger, at Chad Berger. And I suppose I'll throw in Mark's handle, even though he's taken tonight off, at WDiamond605. As always, just want to let folks know the opinions on this show are strictly ours and not of those of USD or the athletic department. Tonight's show, once again, brought to you by the Wakanda Peach Company out of Wakanda, South Dakota. Wakanda Peach Company, where all your peach dreams come true. Fun episode in store for you all tonight. We will recap the week that was in athletics. Look forward to what's ahead. A little later on, our special guest is none other than the voice of South Dakota women's basketball, Jerry P. So very excited for that. And with that, I welcome in Chad. Chad, good to see you, my friend.
Hey, Jordan. Good to be back. Do another episode here.
What a quick week, huh? I feel like we were just doing last week.
Well, I think, we were at games this week, so it went really, really quick. One thing that I was going to mention, if you're out there watching in YouTube land, go ahead and smash that subscribe button, like the video, go ahead and comment. You can live comment on the show, and some of your comments may be featured on the air during the program. So go ahead and give us a comment or two during the show, interact with the program a little bit, and make it fun. Well, let's go ahead and review what happened over the past week in Coyote Athletics. Men's basketball improved their season record to 4-1. They did lose at Iowa 96-77. You can tell I didn't do the slide because I would put the winning score first, but that's okay. So 96-77 was the final on that one. And then win on Thursday night over Dakota Wesleyan at the SCSC 92-69. The women dropped to 0-4 on the season with losses versus Loyola Marymount in overtime, 71-67, and Nebraska at the Pentagon on Saturday night, 113-70. Cross country, the men and women placed 22nd overall at the regionals. Football improved the record to 8-2 on the season, 6-1 in conference with a win at North Dakota, 42-36. We'll go over that in more detail later on. And volleyball had a rough week with losses at St. Thomas and Omaha. Both of those were 1-3. So that's a quick recap of what happened this past week in Coyote Athletics. Next, what we're going to do is bring on our guest. So let's welcome him in. He's as Jordan mentioned, the voice of Coyote women's basketball, and he's also our sideline reporter for the football broadcast, Jerry Paleschi. Welcome, Jerry.
Hey guys, how are you?
Great.
Good, Jerry. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
You've got a guest
with a special guest.
Well. Sorry, yeah, I figured one of them was going to intrude in the broadcast at some point, whether it was my 5-year-old, my 3-month-old, or one of the two dogs. So here they are.
Well,
let's see if we can pass.
I love it.
Any of those kids and dogs, Jerry, I mean, those are got to drive our ratings through the roof. So
yeah, you do what you can do. Anytime a little Yorkie jumps in on a broadcast, you know that ratings are going to go up. So you might as well.
Yeah, Jerry, can you do us a favor? Can you get the Yorkie and put the face up to the camera? Then we can use that as the thumbnail for tonight's episode instead of my awkward ass face that Chad always seems to.
It's YouTube. YouTube always picks an awkward picture of Jordan and makes that our thumbnail.
Of course. Now you mentioned that she has no form of interest in coming back over here.
Yeah. Well, Jerry,
like half our listeners.
Let's go ahead and start off. Tell us a little bit about yourself. You kind of have some ties to USD going back. So how did you get involved with USD?
Yeah, it's really my broadcasting career, if you will, started at USD as a student with Coyote Radio, or at the time, I believe we were called. We were still Coyote Radio. We rebranded off of U Radio. I was there during the UDOT days, so we quickly switched off of that. But I went to USD as a business major, and I hit this class called calculus and realized that math was not my strong suit. So it was at that point in time I decided that why not just go for something I always wanted to do, which was sports broadcasting. And We had the Al Newharth Media Center there, so it just made sense. I walked in through the door of the radio station group. I said, I want to do games and I want to do my own show. And they said, okay, sure. Here's how you sign up. It was literally just put your name down on a piece of paper, and it kind of just jumped right into it. I had no form of play-by-play experience or anything. So really my first experience doing games was at USD, and it was calling basketball games, which is kind of a fun tie-in now because the first games that I called included Amber Heggie, who is now on the women's basketball staff, Amber Cunningham, who is now back for USD. She was the center star for USD at the time, and we were making our transition through the Great West Conference, and really as an independent for the first year or two, and then went into the Great West Conference. So we were seeing teams like New Jersey Institute of Technology, Houston Baptist, Chicago State, all of them. So really that's where I got my start, was calling those games in the Dakota Dome, and I did so from the old football press box. We didn't have the where John now does the games in one of those the old suites, if you will. Before then, everybody radio-wise or TV-wise was always on that just regular level. I was broadcasting basketball games in the Dome from that spot, which felt like a mile away. But if anything, it taught me a lot. And when I left college, I got a job up in Sioux Falls. I covered high school sports for a good 7-8 years, doing roughly 75, 80 broadcasts between August and March each season. And it just kind of went from there. I left that job and got a job at the Sioux Falls Sports Authority. And then the door opened up for USD, which it felt like all the stars just kind of aligned, because if I didn't leave my radio job, I don't know if it would have worked. You know what I mean? So everything happens for a reason in that sense. And here I am today.
Jerry P, what sort of prep work goes into, let's all go all the way back and how your prep work has evolved, right? For back to the U days, to high school, to now. What do you do to prepare for games so you have all of that content to provide us fans that are listening throughout the game?
Yeah, and actually what would be interesting that you bring that up, can I do one of these like share screen things on this? I don't know if let me see if I can try this here. Let's see. Yep.
I don't know if it'll let you, Jerry.
Okay, so if it doesn't let me do it, I've been working on prep stuff for the game coming up tomorrow morning. And what really goes into it for me is that I make these rather large game boards that have all the rosters on it, everybody's stats, interesting notes, things to know, the stats from the last game, and it's this whole compiled sheet of paper. Roughly, it's a few hours into every single game that we broadcast, and this one has a little bit of a quick turnaround between Nebraska and Bellevue, with just the 1 day between. But typically it's about 2 to 2.5 hours. And Jordan, you brought up, what was it like in the beginning? Not going to lie to you, it was kind of roll into the Dakota Dome at the time, grab a program, and you just kind of went with it. And then you quickly realize that it's a little bit more difficult than what you think it ever is. So you kind of learn on your feet. And, the best part is too, and I always tell the college students down at USD, or really anybody, when I talk to them about it, is that the best growth opportunity that you have working college games for college radio is that you have a sports information department that is very kind enough to just put their time and soul into creating these game notes. And if you can check them out for yourself, if you go on to goyotes.com, you can see all the different game notes that Bailey Zubke and the entire staff. I work with Bailey, of course, with the women's basketball front, but they pour so much time into making these game notes that have rosters and just everything else that you could ever think of for every single game. And for students, that is just, it's like a gold mine to find that, because when you get out of that and you go onto, let's just say, the high school front, you don't have any of it. So then it's talking with coaches, it's talking with maybe some players once in a while, working with different colleagues, just to get some stories and interesting angles. Because when you get into the high school front, sometimes you don't have anything. So just in that sense, it's always a development tactic that way, because by doing the high school side, you really get to understand what goes into a broadcast and how you need to find it. And then learning from the college side, if you're a college student and you do check in on this, it's one of the coolest things that all of that is provided not only for you, but then you can expand upon all that. It gives you a good baseline. And if for me, it's just been a matter of kind of marrying the two together. And I always will take care of my SIDs and all those guys that put into all that work in that time, because ultimately, there's some things that you just can't, I'm not going to catch every single night. So for example, last night during the Nebraska game, Carly Duffney went over 10 points. Well, that's now 9 straight games that Carly has gone over 10 points. And that dates back to last year. Bailey sent me that note during the game, and I was able to work that on the air. So these guys, they know the teams like the back of their hand. I feel like I know the teams like the back of my hand too, but it's just another deeper layer. So that's kind of just a little bit of what goes into it. I'm still prepping for tomorrow morning. I'm not going to lie to you. Still got a little bit left to do, but yeah, to make a long statement a little bit shorter, takes a few hours to get ready for every single game.
Nice comment from Mr. Bryce side on YouTube, saying Jerry's a true professional. Always a pleasure to work with him. So I'm assuming you know who that is, Jerry.
I believe so. If it's who I believe it is.
Okay.
I think I only know about one Bryce, so this should work.
So Jerry, you also are the sideline reporter for the football broadcast. And so right now is kind of a challenging time of year for you, because not only are you weren't able to go to the game this past Saturday because of the women's basketball game, but you're kind of doing double duty during the week. You have to prep for the football games, you have to prep for basketball games, you have to, do a lot of travel and things like that. How challenging is that to incorporate all of that?
See, I don't look at it as a challenge. I look at it as just complete fun. It's chaotic and it's great and it's awesome. And credit to John Thayer for this one. We somehow managed to make it to where I could help broadcast with the football team yesterday with Grand Forks, and then turn around and do the game at the Pentagon. So if you did listen to the football broadcast, it almost was like I was there without being there. I actually utilized my work office and had this basically command center going. I had like 3 computer screens. I was zipped in on a Teams meeting with John and broadcasting through my mixer and computer to him. And then had his screen with the game feed on it. And then I had my other screen with like stats and interesting news and all of that. So I was able to actually work into the broadcast for the North Dakota game yesterday, and then turn around and do the women's basketball game. Crossover season, it's just fun. It's a lot more fun, I would say, for us broadcasters than, again, like our SIDs and all of those guys that just put so much time and everything when you have so many sports that are crossing over at the same time, but that they love it too. But yeah, it's a challenge. Yes. But it's a lot of coordination for sure, but it's a lot of fun too. November is it's a fun month.
Jerry, I have one question before we, get into more basketball stuff, because I know that's your primary, but how have you seen, when you're on the sidelines, the athleticism and the speed of this team compared to years past? Because we obviously, like us fans, are watching, whether it's in the stands, we're up high, we're watching on TV, but when you're down there, how has the USD football team evolved? Because like we see it, but where your point of view is at, what are you seeing down on the field with this Coyote team this year?
A lot of focus, and I think a lot of it too is just a full out belief of this is a good football team. You're not saying they didn't have that before, but if you go back to the start of the Division I era, and at the time it was like trying to find those wins in the Missouri Valley Football Conference, and it's kind of considered the SEC of the FCS, and for good reason. Those teams are always very good, and you look at the development of this program from the day they entered the Missouri Valley Football Conference to where they're at now. It's a night and day difference. But if you go back a couple of years ago, there was a tough season in which they only win about 3 games. Then last year they come back and they get 10 wins on the board and they go into the quarterfinal round of the playoffs. And there was this sentiment, I think, from fans, which I don't think was as fair to say, like, well, I don't know how believable it was. It truly was a really good team, and that defense was just phenomenal last year too. And going into this year, there was a little bit more of that. Well, how do you replace a guy like Brock Mogeson and Stephen Hillis and those guys on the defensive side? And truly, the guys that have stepped up have just been unbelievably good. And this is a team that I think when last year you might have had that kind of feel of like, yeah, we're good, we're good. Now this year it's we're good and we're here to full out compete. And you could just sense that on the sideline. That focus is fully there. These guys full out believe that they belong and they play like they belong. I mean, there's other times in history where you can look at USD football teams in the past where if you were to fall down 14-0, it probably wasn't looking too good. And now, they fall down 14-0 in the back of, I think, of everybody's head. You're like, you know what? We need to stop on the defensive side. We need a touchdown, get one more stop. You're right back in it. And that's kind of how it played out yesterday. They just took command of that game, took a shot to the mouth, battled through that adversity, and pulled out the win at the end.
All right, Jerry. I got a two-part question here for you. Number one, what is the strangest thing that you have witnessed so far being a sideline reporter?
How about just going to Portland and just making that trip out there? And John and we got everything situated and set up in our radio booth. And I mean, literally just got everything set up. And that's when we got the knock at the door, and their communications guy said, "Hey guys, the game's canceled." And I kind of looked at him, and I don't remember exactly what I said, but it was something close to the line of like, "Yeah, okay, like whatever, you're just kind of messing with us. You're joking me." And he's like, "No, really, the game's canceled. Some of the members of the team have whooping cough." And I just remember, I think, looking at him saying, "Yeah, okay, you're joking." And John turned around and saw out the window where I wasn't looking that the equipment staff was loading everything up. And John just turned around and said, "Hey, I don't think he's kidding." And so we had everything set up and situated. Gary Culver, who does our color commentating for our broadcast, he actually flew out that morning, left Sioux Falls at like 6:00 in the morning, and was actually in the Uber from the Portland International Airport to the stadium when we called him, and was like, "Hey, the game's not happening. It's canceled." And of course, he's like, "Well, I'm 2 minutes away." He rolls in with the Uber, and he's looking at us, and he's like, "You're kidding, right?" And we're like, "No, we have all the equipment now packed back up." So it was just wild. I know it's not exactly what you were saying of like strangest thing I've seen on the sideline itself, but that is one that it's a memory that's just going to be burned in my head forever, is looking at Gary and being like, "Oh no, it's not happening." And then it was the question of, well, do we go back to the hotel? Do we go to the airport? What do we do? We kind of were just standing outside the stadium for about 40 minutes. And then the equipment staff, they got everything loaded into the semi. And it just was this moment of like, okay, I think a bus is coming back to get us. And I think we're going back to the hotel. And it ultimately all worked out. But yeah, that's going to be the strangest thing that has occurred, not necessarily on the sideline itself, because I never made it to the sideline for that game.
Wow, that is absolutely crazy. Well, then I'm not going to ask my second part of that one, but I will ask one. We did have a viewer chime in here. Any broadcasters that you look up to?
Well, I'll tell you straight up that I appreciate everything and truly kind of always listen to what John does. John and I we go back, excuse me, guys. We go back a little ways. And one of the things where he has consistently helped me, we used to exchange audio back and forth and critique each other. And that was when he was even still doing like Yankton football. So he's one guy that I consistently lean on just to even better myself as a broadcaster. Nationally, like, how do you not like Kevin Harlan? One guy that I a lot of the times listen to, and it's not I don't know a super familiar name, but he does a lot of the ESPN radio broadcasts. It's Mark Kestisher. I've always really liked Mark in the way that he broadcasts a game for basketball. And so those are a couple of guys that I look up to. Kevin Harlan, what I really appreciate about him is where he draws people in because he's just real with them. And if he can crack a little bit of a joke, that's kind of what he does. And I think if you were to listen to a broadcast that I do, I'm not afraid to make fun of myself. I did it last night. At one point, I had the score differential wrong, and I think I said it wrong twice in a row. And I finally just was like, math was never my strong suit, never will be. I guess I messed that one up. So I'll poke fun at myself during a broadcast, and I have no problem doing that. And I think I've always appreciated that about Kevin Harlan, is just being able to let loose and just kind of let it go. So those are just a few people. There's been a lot of them out there locally. I can look at guys like Mike Hendrickson and Craig Maddock, who kind of in a lot of ways set the floor for us sports broadcasters here. Another guy that really helped me get going was Rich Rosti with the Sioux Falls Storm. If it wasn't for him, I really don't know. He taught me a lot of just how to broadcast, what went into a broadcast, formatting for a broadcast. So like play-by-play wise, I would really point to a lot of those guys. It's, there's a lot of special people locally that have done it, but, nationally too, there's a lot of great guys out there. It's just, I love the craft of it. I really do.
There was we were watching the Bears-Packers game today on, I think it was Fox, and my wife's a Bears fan, and it was the end of the first half drive where everyone's going, why are you not calling a timeout? And the announcer, is it Burkhardt, does the
Kevin Burkhardt did that game today.
He's like, this is either going to be the most memorable drive of recent memory or a complete disaster. And I love how announcers have started to be like so honest and like less PC with things. And you're right, Kevin Harlan does a really good job of that. Jerry P. I lied. One more football one. So Chad's allowing me to do this because he won't let me talk about it at the end of the show. FCS playoffs coming up. High stakes on Saturday against North Dakota State. What have you guys been talking about? What does this look like for USD? With a win, we know that they'll be guaranteed a top 4, maybe even a top 3 seed. With a loss, where are you thinking USD ends up because of that forfeit game from Pertussis or Portland State University? Where's USD going to end up, do you think?
A lot of it for me has just been looking towards that next game and with North Dakota State, and of course you want just win that game and then let the rest of the pieces fall the way that it needs to be. I think they're deserving of a top 8. Worst case if things just don't go right on Saturday, but I'm not even going to think that way. They're going to win on Saturday and we'll just call it good. But in the event that it doesn't happen necessarily that way, I truly think that they deserve a top 8. I would hope that the committee in that situation would not penalize them on the whole Portland State fiasco and that whole deal. That is one that I wish the NCAA maybe would have considered a different way with the way that everything did go down. But yeah, it's I would think that in any way that they should at least get that first round bye and not have to play on Thanksgiving. But hey, let's just win on Saturday. And I don't think it's any hyperbole truly to say that this is the biggest regular season game that we have had. It's you have number 1 against either what would be, you would assume, number 4 or number 5 in South Dakota, and they're coming in and you have a share of the conference title at stake. That is so huge for USD. And not to mention you win that game and you start really looking at, where do you stand at that point? Because you could potentially have a 3-way tie in the conference, and then you have the automatic qualifier, of course, that could go one way or another. How does that shake out? But that could get really wild at the top if they were to win that game in terms of who gets what seed and in what position.
I agree. I'm right there with you. Let the chips fall where they may, but it's been fun, right? The last couple of years where us as Coyote fans get to be involved in this national discussion of seeding. And obviously the playoffs have expanded. So getting that top 8 seed is even more important now.
Absolutely.
And Jordan, he's a true professional. Do you notice how he didn't sit and give like 47 different scenarios of if this happens and this happens,
Hey, I wasn't going to do that. It was like 37, maybe.
So, Jerry, Jordan's notorious for questioning the offensive play calling this season. What's no, I'm just kidding. I won't ask that one. So let's talk about women's basketball for a little bit. The season's off to a rough start for the Coyotes. I know there's been a coaching change. A lot of people questioning why we don't have a post player down low. What are your takes on kind of the state of Coyote women's basketball right now?
I think if you look at the first really 3 games of the season, you could be totally talking about a different situation if a couple of just things fall the other way. They could be 3-0. Entering that Nebraska game on Saturday, you drop a tough one at home in overtime to open up the season against St. Louis, who was the reigning and defending WNIT champions coming into it. And then you turn around, you go to Air Force against the Mountain West program. That's a tough school to play, especially when you're playing at elevation. And you had a great first half the way that they did. In the second half, Air Force just kind of worked them down. And where you saw maybe the big difference in that half was just the total rebounds and then the points off the turnover, the second chance opportunities. And those 3 really added up for the Yotes. And that's where ultimately they ended up falling at the end of that game. And you looked at Jada McNabb is one player for Air Force that I called her high school games when she used to come out to Sioux Falls for Rapid City Stevens. And to see her play for Air Force now, and you're talking about a kid that is like 5'10" and is within the top, I think it's 5 or 6 in the nation for offensive rebounds per game at about 4. It's just incredible. And she's done that consistently through her Air Force career. And they kind of exposed the Coyotes in that sense of just being able to get those second chance opportunities and points. The LMU game, certainly that one was kind of tough to swallow. I'm not going to lie to you on that, with the way that the Yotes came out in that one. And the way that it kind of felt was that we took game number 1 and the Yotes battling back from 17 down against St. Louis. And then we took game number 2, in which the Coyotes had the lead in the first half, lost in the second half. It felt like we just married it together. And that's what ended up happening in that LMU game. And things just kind of went downhill in that second half. And it was frustrating. It was frustrating for, I know, the fans that watched that game and the way it unfolded, but it was frustrating too for the coaching staff and the players. And it's a loss that for them, I know, was one that kind of sat on them, and they had to regroup off of that and go and play against another tough team in Nebraska. But I've been saying this too. It's, and not calling any form of any program or anybody out, but if you look across the country and you look at different games that are played in the first 2 weeks of the season, you're seeing a lot more games that are, maybe played against lower level schools right away. You're seeing a lot more of those type of situations and setups to where teams can, you kind of have those bye games where you get those games that get a little bit of that feeling underneath you. You try to figure out what works and that development process, that growing process. Coyotes really haven't had that this year. When you open up against the WNIT reigning champions, you go Mountain West, and then you have LMU, and then you have Nebraska. That's probably as tough of a 4-game stretch as what a team can start with at the beginning of the season, especially for a young team that Carrie Amy has in that squad. They are truly a young team that has, Alexi Hempy, Grace Larkins, those 2 especially have been around the program for a long time. Adara Groman is a 4-year starter that came over from New Hampshire. So they have some pieces that have played a lot of college basketball, but you look at some of the other members of the roster and you're talking about sophomores, you're talking about some freshmen working in. It's going to be a little bit of a learning process in that sense to get everybody up to speed and playing the way that Carrie Amy fully wants them to play. And, those first 4 games, that's if you're going to learn, those are 4 good games to learn off of.
I think that's an important point too, for our listeners that, and those that might not know about the women's basketball squad, is they are young. Like, you're right, Grace and Alexi, like, they're leading. Grace is playing phenomenal so far this season, right? But these are growing pains with this squad. New coach, very young roster. We're going to keep an eye out. The Summit League, the top heavy teams in the preseason poll, they're a little bit more experienced, right? So these are going to be some really good non-con, especially the road test too. But you're right. It's good for them it's a good non-con schedule. And let's get these losses out now, especially I think the one on Saturday.
If you think about like Leanne Williamson with the volleyball team, and it's kind of one of those funny quotes you hear each year where she says, well, in our preseason, we're getting set in our preseason, and they're playing against those top programs out of, across Division I in their preseason, which is the non-conference.
Missouri, yeah.
And they're gearing up for conference play. And I think, if you're Carrie Amy and you're the coaching staff right now for the Coyotes, a lot of it is probably looking at it that way too. Of, we got to get this team in a position for when we start conference play that they're playing the best basketball that they can. And you see the glimpses of it, and there's certainly some things that they can work on. So, I think they'll get there. I truly do. I think that there's a good, spot for this team that once things just kind of start clicking and some of those young players start working in a little bit more and settle in. Sorry, guys. I have 2 kids at home, and I've been dealing with a cough here for what seems like 6.5 months ever since, you have another baby and they go to daycare and all that other fun stuff. So if you ever listen to me do a broadcast and I feel like it sounds like I'm giving a nice little hiccup, I'm just trying to shake this thing. So just full transparency. But anyway, I think they'll get there. And once some of those players really settle in, I think you'll start to see that. Last night against Nebraska, there was one time on the floor that you had Grace Larkins out there, and she was joined by Olivia Kiefer, who was a sophomore, Coral Mason, who's a sophomore, Addison Clostevor, who's a redshirt freshman, and Gabby Wilkie, who is a freshman. And you look at some of those names, and we've seen all 4 of those players outside of Grace work in every single game. So they're getting their reps, and I think they're gonna piece it all together. Once conference season rolls around, I think you'll see a kind of a different squad than what you see right now.
So Coyote fans should not panic yet, is what you're saying.
No, and I think, you guys brought up the post, right? You brought up not having a traditional, maybe a big post player down low. Natalie Mazurek transferring down to TCU. You had Walker Demers transfer up to North Dakota. Those are a couple of big players that this coaching staff might have looked at and said, hey, that would have given us a little bit more of a post presence. Now, Lexi Hempy, she is dangerous from pretty much everywhere on the floor. So maybe they start working her a little bit more down low. But we saw that last night. She scored 8 points in the first quarter, and I think she had 2 3-pointers out of that. She can shoot. So when you look at the team and you look at the way that they're positioned on the floor, you wouldn't be surprised to see a lot of those outside shots. And again, for maybe some of the players, they just got to get settled in just a little bit more. And, I think they'll start working a little bit more down inside the paint outside of just Grace Larkins. And by the way, that LMU game, I don't think I've ever seen it before where in the first half of a game where a team just decided they weren't going to guard the paint. I mean, Grace was able to get 22 points in the first half. And I think all but 2 were everything was inside the paint. Everything else, I think she had 2 points at the free throw line. I've just never seen a team not guard the inside like that before. It was crazy.
You're right, though, Jerry. Yet last night and every game, like they're getting great looks. Like even the Nebraska game, they were getting really good look. They're just not falling, and they're accurate too. They're an inch short, or maybe they're an inch long on the backside of the rim. Like the offensive schemes that Coach Amy and staff are drawing up, like they're working to get good looks, mid-range on the outside, and then allowing points in the paint to happen too. You just got to make them right. You can't shoot it. What they shoot last night, or on the season, it's been a kind of the tail right through the first 4 games. The 3-point percentage not quite where they need it to be.
And that was a weird game last night in the sense too that, and I talked with Carrie Amy before and after every game. Before the game, a lot of the talk for Nebraska is on Alexis Markowski, and for good reason. She could be Big Ten Player of the Year. And Carrie talked about how they needed to make sure that she didn't do any damage inside the post. And she finished, I think, last night with 14 points, if I remember off the top of my head, but she hit 2 3-pointers. And in the opening 3 minutes of that game yesterday, they tried to go inside to Markowski. I think it was 4 times, and she did not come up with any form of points. And the Coyotes were defending pretty nicely on the inside. Now, where that game got really weird is the fact that we talked about it in our post game too. It's hard to defend a team, even when you have a hand in their face and they're still knocking down their shots. Nebraska finished shooting, I think it was 64% from the field. And that's just incredible. And it wasn't like those shots were just wide open and Nebraska was just easily taking care of shots. They had to work for those shots. And the Coyotes consistently had, hands in the faces and trying to get after that basketball. But Nebraska just couldn't miss, it felt like, last night.
I think I said post game. I didn't have official stats in front of me. I think they made like 96.7% of their shots last night.
It felt that way. They had 23 pointers at the end of the night for Nebraska. And each of those, like, I'd have to go back and look at the tape, but I'm pretty sure most of those, a good 90%, were contested.
Yep.
All right, Jerry. Well, we really appreciate your time. Hopefully we can have you on back on the show here, maybe like towards the end of the basketball season, get an update with how things are going for the Yotes. So thanks so much for joining us tonight, and we will catch you later.
Yeah, thanks guys for having me. Would gladly do it with you again, and hopefully next time I'm not dealing with this daycare, cough, whatever else. And we'll get through an 11 a.m. broadcast tomorrow, Yotes and Bellevue, with about 1,000 to 1,200 screaming elementary school kids inside the Sanford Coyote Sports Center.
Oh, tomorrow's Education Day, isn't it?
Tomorrow's Education Day, so cheap plug.
Right.
I'll take the air on the Coyote Sports Network at 10:30 in the morning. I will have my coffee ready to go with me, even though I'm way awake prior to that. But it just feels right if you're going to start a game in the AM still. I'm going to have a nice cup of coffee with me to do it.
Perfect. All right. Well, have a good call, Jerry. We will talk to you later.
Yeah, thanks guys.
Jerry.
Go Yotes. All righty. Well, that was excellent. I was gonna quiz him on just name a number and have him see if he could give us the name of the player, but I didn't want to do that, to put him on the spot like that.
Can you imagine calling a basketball game in the dome up top with how?
Well, so I think that's why they have young people do that, because my eyes would not be good enough to be able to see that far, number one. But yeah, I would have to have binoculars or something else going on. We did get a comment during that, Jordan applauding offense.
Yeah, what MW is.
Yeah, he's a fan of the show, so definitely tunes in very regularly. So we appreciate all of those comments coming in tonight. Well, let's go ahead and jump back to what's going on here. So let me see if I can. Let's recap the football game.
Mm-hmm.
So Saturday, Jerry talked about this a little bit, but South Dakota moved to 8-2 on the season, 6-1 in conference with the win over North Dakota. It was in North Dakota, Grand Forks, the Alaris Center. And South Dakota, I believe, had never won there prior to Saturday. Is that correct, Jordan?
Correct. Not in that building.
Yep. Attendance was pretty good. Almost 9,000 folks there. It was a noon kickoff. And North Dakota kind of got off to a lead right away, but then the Yotes answered and kept it, close at halftime. But then in the second half, the Yotes were able to get that 10-point scores in the third quarter. And then down the stretch, it got a little weird, got a little interesting. But the Yotes were able to come out on top. You can see a few of the stats here. Aiden Bauman threw for 190 yards. Charles Pierre Jr. had 173 yards rushing and 75 yards receiving, I believe, if I got those in the correct order here. Mm-hmm. We'll go ahead and go through the scoring summary here real quick. UND actually did get off to a 14-0 lead before Will Leyland kicked a 45-yard field goal to top off a 9-play, 51-yard drive with 9:34 left in the first half. Then Carter Bell caught an 18-yard touchdown pass from Aiden Bauman with about a little over 3 minutes left in the first half. And then Quincy Vaughn for North Dakota scored with just under a minute left, but then the Coyotes were able to get a Coron Adams 13-yard touchdown catch to go into the locker room down 4, 21-17. Third quarter, as I mentioned, the Yotes scored 10 points. Charles Pierre Jr. had a 53-yard touchdown pass from Bauman, and then Will Leyland kicked a 40-yard field goal, putting the Yotes up 27-21. Travis Tice had an 8-yard run there in the fourth quarter right away to put the Yotes up by 2 scores. And then Charles Pierre Jr. had a 76-yard run. So the Yotes were up 42-21 at that point. And then the UND team was able to score, get some stuff that happened there, and then scored with 23 seconds left to make it a 42-36 final score. Jordan, you have any other insights on that?
What a wild game. I told Chad this before we went on, but I had just a family event that took me out in the last quarter and some change of the third, but I was following along on Twitter. I need to go back and watch the fourth quarter. Apparently, the onside kicks that occurred, that was just crazy from what I was told. So want to check it out for myself, but no, from what I was able to watch and hear, I thought Jerry P nailed it, right? Like, this was a classic example of we just came out and got punched in the mouth, and it was, how are we going to respond? And I agree with him 100% in these games, even like at Youngstown State. I think this is the first time where I felt like we're fine. Like even some of the home games, whether it's Drake or Northern State, those first drives, they score first, right? They hit first, and it's just kind of like, okay, first drive, we'll be fine. And we turn out to be fine, especially at home. But you look at Aiden and the offensive line, and then obviously the specials weapons at wide receiver and running back, and you just have 100% confidence in this team on the offensive end. And then the defense, this is just one of those games that UND was giving you everything they had. Not the best game defensively, especially the end of it, which I need to go watch. I kind of want to see how the 42-21 lead evaporated, but no, it's hey, a road win is a win in the Valley. We'll take it. 14,301 days drops down to 0. We finally ended that curse up at UND, but yeah, here's the stats. Do you want to run through those, Chad?
Yeah, sure. Aiden Bauman finished with 190 yards, 15 for 21 passing, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. Charles Pierre Jr. had 15 carries for 173 yards and a touchdown, and also had 4 catches for 75 yards and a touchdown. You can see that 11.5 yards per carry average. That's pretty decent. I don't care who you are. I saw also a post that he's over 1,000 yards, not in one game, that would be a record, but for the season. And I believe it said something like it was the first 1,000-yard rusher that the Yotes have had since moving up to Division I. Is that sound correct?
Correct. Okay. Yep. First one in for a season.
Yep. Double check my accuracy here.
Travis, you can be sure to chat, or you can be sure to at him at Chad Berger if he is incorrect.
Yeah, go ahead. The thing is, I'm usually not though, Jordan. It's kind of crazy how that works. But Travis Tice had 16 carries for 135 yards and a touchdown, and Karan Adams had the 2 catches for 44 yards and a touchdown. Carter Bell had 4 catches for 44 yards and a touchdown, and you can see that the tackle leaders here, McKelvey, those guys are just doing work, and the defensive line, I think we've talked about these guys every single week, Jordan, but sacks, tackles for losses, they're just getting it done up front, and then Will Leyland made all of his kicks, 4 for 4 on PATs, and then 2 for 2 on field goals. So, anything else to add there, Jordan?
No. Onward to NDSU. There was a really good game against UND. Another monkey off our backs with streaks as far as bad road streaks. So this team means business, and they're taking care of it.
So here is the updated conference standings. You can see North Dakota State leads the conference at 7-0 in conference, 10-1 overall. South Dakota State and South Dakota and Missouri State are all 6-1 in conference. And then Illinois State, 5-2, Indiana State, Youngstown State, North Dakota, Southern Illinois, Northern Illinois, and Murray State are all below 500. So you can see the Yotes are in pretty good shape here for this big matchup against North Dakota State. That game will be in the Dakota Dome this weekend. And so we'll talk about that later. So let's move on to volleyball. Volleyball had a rough week this week. And essentially lost 2, right? So I think we had mentioned last week it was a big week. They were playing the 2 teams that were nearest them in the standings there. And unfortunately, Thursday at St. Thomas dropped 3 sets, only winning 1. You can see the attendance there was 387 on the evening. But, just things that kind of hurt the Yotes. Pretty low attack percentage on the evening, about 181 for the evening. Kylan Seelock, Cheyenne Halady had 15 kills each for the Yotes. Lauren Medic had 16 kills, and Lauren Medic also had 6 blocks on the night. Amanda Lotion, stepping up big, also had 8 blocks for the Yotes. And Cameron Ferris got 38 digs, but as we mentioned, unfortunately, the Yotes were unable to kind of get over the hump there. You can see the scores. It was 25-21, 25-21, the first two, kind of one going each way. And then the Yotes put up points, but just weren't able to kind of get over that hump. We kind of have a theory that the first team to get to 20 usually has a major advantage, and unfortunately, the Yotes were not able to get there all
That's what
evening.
the announcer. Sorry to interrupt. That's what the announcers were saying for it too. That it was what did they say? The left side, which I have no idea, but according to their broadcast, the left side, each team had started 2-0 for a score, and they went on to win the set, and that happened in all 4 of these sets. It was good, but they were good sets, tightly contested. But you're right, it was the first to 20, and then we just couldn't close it out. Those 3 sets just couldn't do it.
Yeah, there's magic values in sports. I think you may have heard of something called the race to 69 in men's basketball, where essentially the first team to score 69 has like a 97% chance of winning, things like that. I haven't done the official analytics in volleyball, but I'm pretty sure it's something like that. So maybe we'll get a class to work on that here coming up in the future. Then on Saturday, played at Omaha. Came out kind of on the losing end of that one. Didn't show up as well there. Omaha playing really, really good volleyball right now. Yotes lost 25-16 the first one, then 25-18. They did win 25-22 in set 3, but then set 4, Omaha pulled it out 25-17. Once again, that attack percentage, right around 15%. Not great. Kylan Seelock did have 11 kills on the evening. Morgan Bodie had 5 blocks. Avery Van Hook had 26 assists. She should lead the team in assists. She's the setter. So, but then she led the team in digs as well, which typically isn't good. I think we talked about that last week, where you don't want your setter leading the team in digs. That just means that either they're serving it to her, or they're tipping it to where she's at, and then that kind of puts us kind of in a rough position offensively, setting things up for the Yotes. So how do things shape up? Well, South Dakota State they have the 1 loss in conference. Omaha has 2, and South Dakota is in 3rd right now with a 10-5 record. But St. Thomas is at 10-6, and they're done. Their conference season is over. And so the Yotes play South Dakota State on Tuesday night at home. And if South Dakota loses that one, I believe St. Thomas would jump over top of them, even though they would have an identical conference record, due to the 2-2 head-to-head matchup, dropping the Yotes, I think, into 4th place for the conference tournament seeding. So keep an eye on that, but make sure you get out there Tuesday night and support the Yotes. South Dakota State coming to town. There's no better reason to get out to the SCSC on Tuesday night and go cheer on the Yotes. End that regular season with a bang.
We're gonna head down there. It's the boys always have a blast at the SCSC, and volleyball games are fun too. Typically, they're not. Well, no, that's not true. Typically, they are more packed than some basketball games, so it's a lot livelier. Brookings coming to town, a chance for USD to deny them an outright conference championship and those bragging rights for a year, something they haven't had for quite a long time. So Omaha will be big Coyote fans Tuesday night. So get to Vermilion. Get the tickets. Heck, you can walk up to the door and get the tickets, but let's pack the place and support these ladies as they close out the regular season.
All right. Well, let's jump on to men's basketball. Men's basketball played Iowa on Tuesday. Was it Tuesday? I'm trying to remember.
Yes.
Okay. And then
Thursday.
No, Dakota Wesleyan was on Thursday. We were at that game.
Oh, yes, Tuesday. Sorry.
Okay.
Tuesday, Thursday.
Iowa was in Iowa City on Tuesday night, and then Dakota Wesleyan at home on Thursday. Dropped the game to Iowa. Caleb Stewart did have 26 points in that one, but other than that, it was kind of not a whole lot of support offensively. Some guys Cameron Fens had 7 rebounds, but I was listening to this one on the radio, and I felt like every shot the Hawkeyes took went in. It seemed like every time they needed a big shot, they kicked it out, 3-pointer, and it was good. Shot clock was running down, kicked it out, 3-pointer, it was good. And unfortunately, I think they had a 13-0 run to start off the second half, and that just kind of separated them in the scoreboard, and that's kind of what led to that victory. You can see
they were there.
Yeah,
they were there. It was between 2-3 possession for that whole first half, and that 13-0 run just kind of killed it. And you're right. Iowa shot, what did I put? Yeah, 64% in the second half. And we're not shooting as well as them, right? I included this because this, it's just moving the ball, right? And this backcourt getting familiarized with each other and how the offense runs, but only 10 assists on 30 made field goals on Tuesday night.
So on Thursday night, the Yotes were back home at the SCSC. This is where you were supposed to put the picture of you, Mark, and I in section 106. That's all right. That's all right. You were supposed to put this in the slide, but that's okay.
So now we can replace the photoshopped one of me, right? Like we can actually have a real. Yeah, that's my bad. This will go on the drive right after this episode.
Okay. The three of us were there. We were in section 106, row 2, having a great time. And I noticed anyways early on that our friend Isaac Bruns was on the program. And so, of course, he had a fantastic game that day. Ended up with a career high 23 points. And us three yahoos, every time that he scored a basket, we took those programs and held them over our head, waved them over our head to let Isaac know we were there to support him. So great job by that young man showing out, 23 points, also had 4 rebounds on the game. Caleb Stewart also had 13 points, Chase Forte 11 and 6 assists. And the Yotes shot 58% in this one. They had 50 bench points for USD and 13 assists on 36 made field goals. Anything else you want to add on this one, Jordan?
Yeah, listen, if I wanted to sit on my hands and watch a Coyote basketball game, I would have stayed home. I'm there to have fun. You buy the ticket, pay for the ticket. I'm there to have fun. So I saw you guys doing that, and we didn't have to whip out the eye chart. It was close. But Mark kept that thing rolled up in the cup holder. It was really nice. The legs, I told you guys this at the game. I was like, the legs looked heavy that game for them. It's coming off a big road game against Iowa where they competed for most of the game. And it was 5 games in 12 days or something, or 11 days.
11 days, yeah.
So a much, much needed break for this men's basketball team. But yeah, the legs looked heavy, and they took care of business. They looked good on Thursday night. But yeah, definitely needed this break.
So I'm not sure if you had that 64% and 54% from Iowa, but MW chimed in and said that 118% for Iowa.
Yeah, my math could have been off. So Mark, MW is probably right.
If you go out to games, have fun. It's a party, right? Enjoy it. Enjoy yourself. Have fun.
Any sporting event, like it's just come on. We're fan is short for fanatic. Like just have fun.
Right.
I don't know, whatever.
Yeah. Just don't do anything weird or stupid, but yeah, just have fun. There's nothing wrong with that. All right. Well, let's move over to women's basketball. Jerry P talked quite a bit about these games. The loss to LMU led 40-22 at half. Grace Larkins had 29 points, 9 rebounds, and 6 assists. Carly Duffney, 12 points, 7 boards. Olivia Kiefer had 11 points and 6 rebounds. And Alexi Hempy had 7 rebounds. But the 3-point shooting wasn't exactly where it needed to be, and the turnovers kind of doomed them a little bit. But tough loss in overtime at home. It was a Wednesday night. It was a early start, 6 p.m. tip.
Yep.
A lot of strange moving parts there, but
just a weird game, just weird vibe. Like the whole thing about it was weird. Like, to put it bluntly, it was one of those games where like we were just watching. It's like, man, we're pissing this one away, and it wasn't any like it was weird. Like they were still playing well. It's just it kept shrinking, and then all of a sudden, crap, we're going to overtime. This doesn't look good.
Yeah, and then Saturday night lost to Nebraska 113-70. We were also at that game. Jordan, you were supposed to put a picture of that on here as well.
I've got a video at the end.
Okay. We'll watch that here later. Grace Larkins finished with 28 points, 5 rebounds, 6 assists. Alexi Hempy, 14 points. Carly Duffney, double digits with 10. But once again, launching a lot of threes, not making as many as Nebraska did. It does say 63% here, so apparently my official count earlier, or my unofficial count of 96% was off a little bit there. But still, it felt like everything Nebraska threw up went in the other night. It was interesting. So we're moving on. All right, so coming up this week, football at the Dakota Dome, November 23rd, North Dakota State coming to town. We brought up the conference standings earlier. North Dakota has 0 losses. South Dakota has 1 loss in conference. Therefore, does that make this game for the championship, conference championship?
I believe so. Well, the scenarios I've been seeing, I don't know if USD can win the automatic qualifier spot.
We're not worried about that right now, Jordan.
Oh, you don't want to get into
Is it for the conference championship?
It's for a share of the conference
championship. There we go. So for a conference championship. So the kickoff scheduled for 1:00 p.m. at the Dakota Dome. Make sure to get your tickets and get out there, right? Don't go to a watch party in town. All right? Get out to the Dakota Dome. Cheer on the Yotes. Make sure that we make that place loud and have the red shirts in the seats, right? We don't want as much green there as we saw.
Plenty of good seats left, guys.
Yep. So go get those seats. Volleyball, I mentioned, is at home versus South Dakota State at 7 p.m. Tuesday. Mark does say it's a share of the conference. Yeah, thanks, Mark. And then November 24th through 26th is the Summit League tournament at Kansas City. So we'll kind of wait for the outcome of the match on Tuesday to see where the Yotes end up, either probably in the 3 or the 4 spot. So got some work to do, but then, hopefully he can get out and perform very well down in Kansas City. Men's basketball is at Western Michigan on November 20th. Is that Wednesday night? Wednesday night at Western Michigan? Okay. And then November 22nd, Friday night at Southern Indiana. So get out the Rabbit Ears or ESPN Plus or whatever you're using to watch those and tune in. Are both those games on ESPN Plus?
Yeah, we don't call them Rabbit Ears. Not on this podcast. Just kidding. Yeah. I'd have to double check. I should have put that in there, but I'm positive it's ESPN Plus.
Okay.
If not, there's some illegal streams I'm sure you could get your hands on.
Yeah. And then you can see women's basketball plays Bellevue tomorrow morning. That's what Jerry P talked about. And then the other game, this one already happened. Jordan, I don't know what happened.
Oh, good Lord. I'm fired.
That's all right. No, you're not. You're doing a great job.
No, don't give me that. Give me 1 second here. Give me 1 second. Okay, it's
November
Thursday,
21st.
November 21st. NCC, North Carolina Central in Vermilion, 7 p.m.
7 p.m. Thursday night at the SCSC. So, date, opponent.
We don't want a rematch against Nebraska. We don't want a rematch against Nebraska. No thanks.
And then swimming and diving is at St. Thomas Invites, November 21st through 23rd. So that's what's coming up this week.
Busy week.
And now,
and that's just what they wanted to do there. And all things considered, again, as you see the eye chart cardboard cutout, how appropriate.
Through the review, the eye chart made its way to the video board. It really injected
Let's go, Mark.
some energy.
as you may know, we do our eye chart of the week segment every single week. And Mark is famous or infamous for holding up that eye chart when officials make questionable calls during games. So we are going to go ahead and give our eye chart of the week moments for questionable calls in life, games, or wherever. So Jordan, let's go ahead and go through last week's eye chart of the week. I believe you messed up a couple players last week, but that's okay. The fans of the show were very forgiving and only voted you 4% of the total there. The refs, Mark's eye chart of the week, actually got a pretty decent percentage, 28%. So 97 fouls in those first two men's games. Got a decent percentage. My eye chart of the week was only 16%. That was the security down at Augustana. And the winner was having a watch party for home games, which obviously it should be. That's why I mentioned earlier, do not go to a watch party this Saturday. Get out and go to the Dome. Sound correct?
Yes.
Okay.
All 13 of my burner accounts voted for that.
All 13.
God, I wish I had time for one.
Oh, all right. So let's go ahead and Mark, since Mark finished top of the list, I'm going to go ahead and editorialize slightly here. Mark has, many of you know, he's in the process of moving right now, and he had a rough week with the mortgage company. So Mark gives his eye chart of the week to mortgage companies / insurance companies / just people in general for not communicating very well. So yeah, we're with you, Mark. Feel for you, man. That's why he's not able to.
Hope you're enjoying your night off, man.
Yeah, no, he's watching our show. I mean, how much more could he be enjoying this? So Jordan, go ahead. What's your eye chart of the week?
My eye chart, it was actually a pretty good week. I didn't really have to deal with anyone annoying in life or on Twitter, which is always great. Maybe people muted me, which I'm all for. So my eye chart of the week went to us three last night at the Nebraska USD game at the Pentagon. I wanted to have some fun, right? And so I got the 50-50 ball toss. So here is Chad, Mark, and myself with the 50-50 ball toss, high above in the Coca-Cola suite. We just waited too long. Here's Chad's throw. I think it made it to the 3-point line and then rolled right. Mark, about the same. And then mine barely almost hits the damn rafters and ends up about 10 feet short. I waited way too long. There was already 200 balls down there. So not a good effort by us three. This is my eye chart of the week.
I love the you stop the video at the end there. That was great.
That was my I'm very competitive, so I'm smiling there, but it's definitely a frustration smile. Like I could, oh my God, what have you done?
This might be our thumbnail for the show this week.
I look cross-eyed. I might have been cross-eyed. I was so mad at my effort. What the Sam hell is that? How you got too much time on your hands. Anyways, that's my eye chart. You know what? That picture is my eye chart of the week.
All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and I have an eye chart of the week, which is also from the game on Saturday night. But this one is the Nebraska Cornhuskers YouTube page, where they posted some highlights from the Huskers triple-digit win over South Dakota. Triple digit. What does that mean? They scored 100. They did not win by 100. It's kind of funny because I actually went down. This is the Nebraska Huskers YouTube channel, FYI. I went down and I started reading some of the comments, And the commenters were kind of on the same page as me. Triple-digit win makes it sound like they won by 100+ points. Not scoring 100, it's winning by 100, so on and so forth. So because of that, the Nebraska Huskers YouTube channel, whoever runs that account, gets my eye chart of the week.
And they still haven't edited it. I'm fairly certain you can go back and change it.
You know, it's one of those things where, yeah, they should take care of business.
Oh, really quick, because they're listening, reminder, folks, that tonight's eye chart of the week, as always, is brought to you by the Wakanda Peach Company out of Wakanda, South Dakota. Wakanda Peach Company, where all your peach dreams come true. Just want to make sure we get that in there.
Yeah.
There it is.
You can follow Wakanda Peach at Wakanda Peach on Twitter, aka X. All right. Well, that's it for this week. Fun show. Glad we got Jerry P on to talk all things hoops. Looking forward to another week of Coyote Athletics. Anything else you want to add, Jordan?
Nope. Get your tickets for Tuesday and Saturday. And if for some reason you're able to go to a women's basketball game at 11 a.m. on a Monday, go to it. Otherwise, listen to Jerry P.
Or Thursday night, too. You kind of messed that one up. So
yes, Thursday night, too.
Yeah.
We'll blame the lack of attendance on me. How's that?
There we go. So get out and
Mr.
support
Hypocrite
the
over here.
Get out and support the Yotes. All right. For Jordan Decker, for Mark Wendt, who's unable to join us tonight, I'm Chad Berger. Until next time, go Yotes.
Go Yotes.